everyone. Welcome to a new episode of Chip Off the Old Clark. Here with me today are two HVAC technicians. One I've known for quite a long time, and Nick Howard. This ugly mug here to my left, your right, is my best friend. Known him for years. Actually, a lot of the stuff I have learned through this is through him and the conversations we've had, and he actually decided to bring his boss on, Rick Gerada. I have that name correct, I do believe.
You got it right.
Perfect. So the first question I have, and probably everybody has, is what actually made you guys want to choose this career path?
I'll let you take the lead on that.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I didn't know what I wanted to be. I started off, I wanted to be a cop. And back in the late 90s, it was really hard to get on the force with different things that were going on. At the time, my dad had an appliance business, and I thought, well, you know what, I want to go back to school and get some more life experience. And so I did that, and I took the refrigeration program, and I got a job right out of college. So it worked out really well, and I wasn't expecting to do this, but here I am today. It took me to a spot that I didn't think I'd ever be in. So it worked out well. So it was almost by accident, actually. So, yeah.
And you, Nick?
For me, I was picking pamphlets up for school, and I was intending on going through for engineering. Through one of those pamphlets, I mistakenly picked up one for heating and cooling. So I took a look through that and decided I'd take a look and give it a shot. And here I am 17 years later.
Yeah, looking online, I saw a lot of jobs on Indeed and everything else, but there's really not a lot of Googling or Wikipedia work when it comes to HVAC at all. Obviously, I know you guys do the heating and cooling side of things. Is it pretty much every single business that has a unit on top, or is it you guys specifically go into, like Labatt's or arenas or stuff like that you actually do the work on?
Well, every building that is out there has to have some form of climate control for bare minimum for the building. On our side of the business, we deal with the more commercial industrial end of things. Okay. And with that comes a lot of varying different appliances that we take care of. Okay. So some days we'll work on production equipment, others will work in restaurant theme where they're walk-in coolers, and even their heating and cooling. So anything that burns natural gas, fuel oil, or requires refrigeration, we're part of that.
Oh, okay. And then when it comes to being an HVAC tech, like as I said, looking through Google, there's this company, that company, this company, that company. What sets you guys apart from some of the other competition that you guys do have?
I would say it's just our technicians is what sets us apart. I would say the skill set within our technicians and what we're supported on through our company, and what their direction, what their goals are. So some companies focus specifically with chillers, maybe boilers. With us, we do chillers, boilers, like Nick said, other types of equipment. So yeah, we're more well-rounded, I guess. Okay. And yeah, so that would I would say that would set us apart based on our technician skill level and the type of work that we actually do.
So it could be a place that, we were talking before the podcast with a bakery. Like there's obviously ovens there, there's coolers and refrigerants. Exactly. So you guys could go into one where, a different set of companies or whatever, you might actually have to have two different ones because they've specialized in one or the other.
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah. When it goes to the school aspect that you both spoke on, what kind of program lengthwise, the more in-depth side of it, how long is the course? What kind of stuff do you guys end up going through to get your certifications to become, where you guys are now?
You want to answer that, Nick, or do you want me to?
I can elaborate on that a bit. It's a 9,000 hour apprenticeship for refrigeration, and that's a 313A license. Okay. You can do a residential for up to 2.5 tons for a 313D.
Okay.
That is significantly less time to actually acquire.
Mhm.
Gas, you can go to school for a gas fitter 2. There is an introductory, which is a level 3, and the highest level you can get is the 1. It's all separated by the amount of BTUs a burner can burn. So at 400,000, you can get by on a G2.
Okay, so now we're going to talk idiot here because BTUs, you just spoke a completely different language from me. What do you guys want to kind of explain that one to me?
A BTU, which stands for British Thermal Unit, is an amount of heat produced by a chemical reaction, and that's how we actually gauge as to how much an appliance can put out for heat.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because I know you and I have talked a bunch of times. Like I, at one point, even thought about getting into that field, and it was you'd start talking to me, and I'm talking about or thinking about, oh well, what video game am I going to play? Because you've completely lost me. So that's actually one of the reasons why I wanted both of you to be on, because it's if I'm having that issue and you and I are friends, I can only imagine that 18, 19-year-old kid wanting to go to college, going, well, I like the trades. I don't want to be an electrician. I don't want to be a plumber, but I want to work with my hands. So it was actually great to have you guys be able to come on. And with the 9,000 hours, is that pure schoolwork? Is that the apprenticeship program like, the electricians or the plumbers have?
It is a apprenticeship. It is a Red Seal trade.
Okay.
So there are 3 school terms involved in it. To get into the trade, our section of the trade, you have to get the job first. The easiest way to get the job is to have a pre-qualification. So if you have your gas fitter 2, which you can get throughout college,
okay,
that's your leg into the door. It is a very small field, and there's not very many of us in it. There will be a big demand coming up within the next 5 to 10 years.
Yeah, you and I talked about that a couple of times, that, a lot of the guys are coming up for retirement, and there aren't a lot our age or even younger that are coming up in, and it's you don't, as I said, you don't really hear of HVAC techs. You two would be the only 2 that I know, other than the one that comes in to do our furnace or whatever, and you and I have known each other for quite a long time. Before that, I never even really thought of it as a career choice.
Well, we're generally not considered unless you have a problem.
True.
Right? Electricians, you think of electrical a lot more often, right? Where a lot of people take, they know they have a furnace, but they assume it's going to always work.
So you guys don't, or people don't think of your career choice as, something right off the top of their head, because it's always on, it's always working, it's never going to break kind of thing.
It's just something that goes on in the background more or less, right? Whereas plumbing, electrical, that's something that you see, you can, lights are on, right? This kind of thing.
Yeah. Like having an exhaust fan that needs to be put into a bathroom and somebody keeps...
Well, it is very important to exhaust any moisture that's in your bathrooms.
Yeah.
I do highly recommend that.
If only I had an HVAC tech that I knew that could do it for me.
Do you know somebody, Nick? Because
do you know anyone?
I don't know anyone.
I don't know anyone either.
But yeah, as I said, it's not a very well known trade.
No.
But when you guys started talking about it, it's really important. I know you and I talked, Nick, that some of the companies, they have all the arenas, all the refrigeration units for the arenas, and being in Canada, if those refrigeration units don't work, you don't get to play hockey, and there's going to be a lot of pissed off people.
There is.
Well, right now, yeah.
And the issue comes up more than people know.
Really?
When there are pad problems, and
okay,
it's always a rush to get things going.
So then, to use London as the example, with the Budweiser Gardens JLC, what kind of an issue do you guys get into where you've got the London Knights, let's say, playing on a Friday night, but then there's concerts the Saturday and the Sunday? Does that get into an issue with you guys where you get called in because when they go to put the ice back in, that it ends up being a problem?
A lot of the times the pad will actually stay in, and then they will board over top of it,
Mm-hmm.
and you wouldn't even know the difference. Other plants may shut down. It just depends on how long the recovery time is.
Oh, okay.
At Carmichael, we don't do any of the pads.
Okay.
It is more of a specialized end of the refrigeration, and there's only about 3 companies out there that take care of that.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So it's more of a, like you guys said it before, the less well-rounded, the more specialized deal with that aspect of things. So yeah, like what would a daily job or excuse me for fumbling over my fucking words here. What would be a daily routine for you guys when, you do get in, time-wise, hours, that sort of thing?
Well, every day is varying, and that's part of the reason what attracted me to the trade.
Mm-hmm.
You never know what you're getting into by the day. There are pre-plans, but it's not always that way. A lot of the time, a call will come in and someone's got to take care of it. So some days you'll be working on a big burner for a factory, or you could be working on a walk-in cooler, or it's so diverse of a field choice that it just keeps things interesting every single day.
So one day you could be up on top of a mall. The next day you could be sitting in a factory with a boiler. The day after that you're dealing with high winds.
Exactly, and and with what we do, we take care of everywhere from the engineering of the beginning of the job to the install to the maintenance of that and the service of it.
Oh, okay.
From the get-go to the end.
So every day is a different day.
Mm-hmm.
Every day is a different day.
So it's not like, electricians where they, wire up this house and then walk away from it, move on to the next one, where it's, you guys do that part of it, but it's, you come back and, well, I need Nick because this is broken. Mm-hmm. I need Rick because that's messed up. I need somebody in because I can't run my business without you guys, right?
It's still a very mechanical trade, and due to the nature of mechanical means, you wear parts out.
Mm-hmm.
So that is always reoccurring for us. Where other trades, once you put a wire in, as long as your load is proper, you never have to touch that line, right?
Yeah. Once you run the pipes for your plumbing for that house, you're on to the next one.
Yeah.
When it does come to that, is it more based on like an hourly thing? Like I know every day is different. You could be working a 6-hour day, you could be working a 14-hour day. It all depends on your situation, but. Is it more structured Monday to Friday? Is it, for you specifically, Nick, like, is it you're always Monday to Friday, or is there the on-call stuff? Is it, more piecework kind of thing?
Well, every day is different. I never actually know when I'm done the day until the job is done. Mm-hmm. We are paid by the hour, by the job. So if there are no jobs, we don't get paid. So we do have our slower seasons, spring, fall, because there's not a whole lot of loads on systems. Yep. It gets a little more lean during those times, and then summer, winter, we're going like crazy to get these things fixed.
24/7, 365.
Yeah, we work weekends if we absolutely have to, and we do have an on-call schedule where there will be a technician on call for a week at a time. He'll work his regular day, and then anytime after the office call closes, he will be taking those calls.
Oh, okay. And is it like, the same guy every time, like somebody like Nick or somebody that's, further up in the company that's normally getting it, or is it kind of spaced out between the guys to get those lower guys or apprentice guys up to snuff?
It's there's a rotation on it, so everybody takes their turn, and it's good to have the apprentices start off like maybe a second term maybe or something, just to kind of get them used to an on-call schedule and what sorts of calls that you may get after hours, right? And you have to be prepared to take on some of those calls, even if it's outside of their skill set. I mean, but that being said, there's always, if they run into problems, there's always somebody that they can rely on to make a phone call, right? To kind of to get through whatever the problem is that they're dealing with. But yeah, typically it's a schedule, it's a rotation, and everybody takes their turns. So yeah.
So it's one of those things where if I was the apprentice on call and I get a call that I have to go to a factory to fix this, and it's outside my skill set, I could call you, I could call Nick and go, hey, this is what I'm looking at. What would you do?
For the most part, the proper technician will go and take that call. So we wouldn't just send an apprentice because he's the only one available. We will always make sure that the customer is supported in the best way.
Yeah.
because there are a lot of appliances that you do have to have a specialized knowledge to be able to resolve that issue. And the apprentice may not have that yet, so there is a support structure there.
Yeah, for sure.
But we have someone that at least can take that call, and we can have a response put together for it.
Okay. So then what would separate you guys apart from the next company? Like if I was, running a business and actually wanting to, my contract's up, looking at different avenues, what sets you guys apart from the next, like the competition or the next guy?
I would say it would be the skill set within our technicians that we have, what they're used to working on and with. But the other part of it's value add, right? It's not just what the technicians have to offer, but it's what the office has to offer as far as customer support. There's one thing that we do, it's called lost for words right now. Spend reports is what we do for our customers. So what we do is we break down over a course of a year what their maintenance costs are, what their service calls, what the cost is for that, projects, and so then the customer can kind of see throughout the course of 12 months what the breakdown is and where their costs and where their money is actually going to. So that's something of value add that we do, that not a lot of other companies do, that they really enjoy, right? So, and sometimes, larger customers, they'll keep track of that themselves, but because we provide that, and we sit down and we go through it with them, they'll take that information and they'll actually match it up to their information just to kind of see, how things are playing out and stuff. So that's actually a big part of what customers are looking for. We're able to provide it to them as part of a value add, right? There's other things within the office, our support, dispatching. Our trucks are GPSed. I know some technicians think, okay, that could go against me, but it's good for dispatch to know where the guys are for the next call. So there's more efficiencies built into trying to get the right guy, the right call in the right amount of time, right, to get things sorted out. So
whereas like an emergency where Nick's working in London and all of a sudden there's an emergency in Kitchener and he's the only one that can fix that call, let's say, for an example. At least then you can tell the customer that, hey, he's an hour out, or having one of the apprentices or one of the other guys to finish off his job so he can move on to the next one.
Exactly.
A little more streamlined, right?
So it's not just the technical side of it, but it's also the business side of it, where we're able to support from both sides to make the customer experience to that what they would expect from us, for sure.
And I would assume too, when it comes to the value add that you were saying, that I can look at it from the number side and the dollars and cents and the bottom line, but to have a company like yours to actually sit there and go, we can cut costs here, where I'm not, as the business owner, I'm not going to know that. Like, there's a reason why we've hired you, we've hired this company or that company, and it's nice to see that you're looking at it from both angles.
To be able to hold their hand and just walk them through the process, because like you were saying before, you don't really think of it until something goes wrong, right? But if you can work with a company that's able to hold your hand and walk you through, whatever problem it is that you're having, whether, it's a service call or whether, you're having a problem with whatever facility that you're at, that they need to add equipment. They maybe need to redesign the system to make it work better. So, we are able to, help them from multiple, from different levels, actually. To solve whatever problem is that they have.
And then when it comes to, solving those problems or whatever, do you guys normally have a sales rep that comes in, or do you have one of you guys that as the technician that comes in?
What we do is, within our structure, we have a projects manager. We have myself, I'm in the office now, but we have, I have like 17 years of experience in tools. We have customer service reps who manage the account managers. So if a customer calls in and they have some sort of a project they want us to look at, typically I'll go in with one of the reps and we'll have a look at it together and just sort of figure out what problems they're experiencing, and where we may be able to help, maybe lay out a few ideas and see if that's what they're looking for. And if that's something what they're looking for, then we can bring in our projects manager, and he can take a deeper dive into into looking at what the solution may look like, and putting together a budget so they can kind of see, okay, this is what the solution is that we're proposing, this is what the budget is, and this is the time frame, this is when we can execute this job, right?
Yeah.
And then we can provide them with this information, and then they can mull over whatever it is that they need to look at, so they can make a decision for themselves and see what direction they want to go in.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so more the nuts and bolts of everything.
Yeah,
right?
it's a customized solution. I wouldn't say it's customized to the customer, so every solution is different, right? Some customers know what it is that they want. Some customers are looking at us for from our point of view what we think the solution needs to be. Some customers know what equipment they want to use. So I mean, it's always different. And, just like being a technician from my point of view, it's never the same. There's always something different happening, which is nice. There's always variety for sure.
Yeah,
there's always a problem to solve. So
and it's not a stagnant business by any stretch, right?
No.
Like, you're not waking up, alarm goes off, I got to go press this button 100,000 times a day, like a factory job or whatever. It's always changing.
Yeah.
When it comes to that, is there anything, personality trait wise that you would need going into it? Like those problem solvers, obviously, because it's a constant problem, but the egos or the ability to learn, like what kind of traits, if someone's looking to get into it, that would be beneficial to them before they even step in?
If you want to take this, go ahead.
For the most part, you need to be able to be good with people.
Okay.
So not only do you need to be able to perform a repair or produce a solution to a problem, you have to be able to communicate that properly with the customer. They're at the end of the day, they're the ones that make the decision. As a technician, we're not just the technician; we're also the first line of sales.
Okay.
So we, to put it easier, you have to be good with people, and you have to be good at fixing things. You have to have the whole package. Without the whole package, it doesn't work.
Okay.
Now,
and we've seen that before.
Everyone has their very different strengths and weaknesses, and as a company, you have to look at who you're sending for what job.
Yeah.
Some jobs you're interacting less with the customer, and other ones you're interacting more. And all of us, we're not all cut from the same piece of paper. That some guys are better suited for that, where other ones are better suited towards doing the actual laborious side of things.
Yeah, so then, as a dispatcher, Rick's really good in the sales side of things. Let's say I would send him to a retrofit or something where you're dealing with a company that's already existing, whereas if you're more of the nuts and bolts kind of guy that can just fix it or build it, I would send you to a new build kind of thing.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
The way I see it is not just one thing like Nick said. It's multiple. I almost see it as a pie chart, right? There's a number of different things that have to come together for you to equal that 100%, the whole thing, right? And that's kind of, I see, like, you have to be technical. You have to enjoy, working outdoors, for example. Like the weather could not, may not cooperate, but it's just one of those things that you have to deal with. And, you have to like that sort of thing, to be outside, to work outside, right? You have to have the people skills. You have to have the technical knowledge and all that, right? There's some instances where you get guys that come on board and they're very good technically, but they don't have the people skills.
Oh, okay.
So then that causes problems, especially from my point of view, right? We have a guy that's going in, he can fix anything.
Yeah.
But, he may not be talking to the customer the way he should be talking to the customer.
Could piss off the customer.
So then you get a phone call, and it's kind of like, then you got to work your magic, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, I think it's a total package, for sure. Yeah, I would say.
And then when it comes to the weather and that, I would assume that it really sucks trying to, spin this nut or crank that bolt when it's minus 30 out and they're waiting for their boiler to get going or their refrigeration unit in 50-degree heat, where it's, you can't turn anything. You can't grab anything because your hands are just completely soaked with sweat or rain even.
How good are your fingertips? And
It depends on how cold it is. A lot of our job requires us to work in the elements. Other parts of the job don't. Sometimes we're in a nice cozy boiler room in the middle of winter, and sometimes it's in the middle of summer.
Yeah.
Other times we could be working in a building-sized freezer. So no matter where you go in that building, it is cold. And then you go up on the roof where the equipment is, and it's the exact opposite.
Yeah.
Generally, most of us don't have a whole lot of feeling of what the temperature is. At least we don't care.
It's one of those, it is what it is kind of things, eh?
It is. Generally, when we go to a facility, we're there to resolve the issue of comfort.
Mm-hmm.
So our comfort is usually the least of the concern, and we get to experience it all.
And then is there a lot of real travel when it comes to, like, I know with podcasts, there's different, events where, the podcasting or DJing with some of the other podcasts where they have events and conventions. Is that kind of something in your field that you guys, kind of all get together and brainstorm on different things, or is it just kind of every company for himself?
From what I want to see is I want to bring all the guys together, right?
Mm-hmm.
I want to have them, like, sometimes, the larger the group that you have, the more you might see cliques, right? And I'm trying to break down those barriers and to have everybody come together and work together as one, because you're stronger as one than you are as an individual, right?
Yeah.
So that's, from my point of view, that's what I'm trying to get the guys to do. As far as areas, I mean, the guys have territories that they work within.
Okay.
So they have, the group of guys that they work with, they're pretty strong. They're together, and they share a lot of the same customers, just with the on-call thing and stuff. So it's important for everybody to be communicating on the jobs, and for the next guy to know what the last guy did, just so everybody's kind of all on the same page of what needs to be done and what's happening, kind of thing. So
if I go into the job and I had to fix something on the boiler, and then the next time Nick goes in and a week later and that same problem is what he's coming to fix, it's that communication's there, that, okay, well, this might be a bigger problem than just maintenance. Yeah,
so now these guys are having that conversation, right? And it all benefits the customer too, because now you got two minds working on it. You both experience the same problem, and sometimes you may walk into a job where you have tunnel vision, right? You might only see a certain thing a certain way.
Yeah.
Whereas if Nick comes in and then right away he'll see what the problem is. He goes, no, it's that over there.
Yeah.
And in that point of view, sometimes it's worth its weight in gold, right? Because it's just that second point of view. Sometimes it makes a huge difference.
When you're right in the situation, you're not seeing what's all around you. Whereas somebody that hasn't been at that job for 3 days, 3 weeks, whatever the time is, might walk in with a fresh mind and fresh set of ideas. Yeah.
And I know in my past it's been huge in a few different occasions. Right? So
But generally, when you get into larger equipment, you do want to have a dedicated technician for that piece of equipment. A lot of equipment that you can work on out there's only one of them in existence. It was built specifically for that job, and coming into it, you won't know. So it's your job to learn that appliance and develop a way of making it work better, or that it just keeps running properly the way that it is. So we do try to have a dedicated technician for that, and then a backup.
So it's almost like, the guy that built the custom car, you're not going to go to, some regular mechanic to fix it. You're going to try and get back to that guy that knows every single piece, every single inch of that machine, right?
Exactly. And as per call basis, sometimes that guy can't make it.
Yeah.
So then we would have to send someone else, and then they always communicate with the primary technician so that the service is being done right, everyone's in the know, and communication is everything. Without that, buildings can be so big that you don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, because I'm assuming, this piece of machinery, equipment, whatever, it's good for this square footage. If all of a sudden, you walk into a new job and the building is too big for the actual appliance, or, too big, the appliance is too big for what it's doing, and it's causing it to be too cold, and it's causing it to be underworked or overworked, and it's causing problems, I'm assuming.
Engineering isn't always a fine art.
Mhm.
Sometimes we come into situations where the equipment doesn't have the capability to do what it's supposed to. I have seen a gym that the equipment was oversized for, and you would think in a gym that's producing more heat that you would want that.
Mm-hmm.
But it's the exact opposite of what we want. You want your piece of equipment size exactly for the load that it's handling,
Mm-hmm.
because it will do it best and most efficiently.
Yeah.
The process of refrigeration is not only are you removing the sensible load of an area, you're removing the latent load, which is the humidity.
Okay.
So you may be in a room and it's cool, but it feels really humid.
It's the difference between being out in the prairies where there's no water and it's minus 20 and it's fine, whereas around here where there's all the lakes and the lake effect, minus 5 feels like minus 30 out west.
Yes, and that's where we need the equipment to be properly sized. And there are things that we can do to adjust the capacity of a unit, but sometimes we can't.
Oh, okay.
So Nick, it's not all about this sometimes?
Sometimes it's not.
It's the rule of thumb. If the building fits within your thumbprint from 100 feet away, then that's the size of unit you use, but it doesn't.
And a lot of the times when a building is built, they don't always know what's moving into that building.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So they will size it for an estimated load.
Okay. Well, and I'm also assuming too that when it comes to a building that was built in the 50s, the technology from the 50s is a little bit different than the technology now. So it's you might have to retrofit something a little more high efficient, and which is going to be smaller or bigger depending on what it is too, right?
The process is always the same.
Okay.
It's just getting to that end process that we have more control over now. There's a lot more devices that allow us to change the capacity of the way that appliance is working.
Okay.
Where in the past, it was more like an on-off switch.
Oh, I gotcha.
So the finer details between those points were a little harder to obtain.
Mm-hmm.
Same with building construction. Older building construction was very loose, and you had a lot of air infiltration into the building. Now we have to have a means to be able to bring fresh air into that building as a building requirement. It's in the National Building Code that you have to have a certain amount of air changes for each kind of dwelling.
Oh, okay. So again, that's something I would have had no idea about. So, when it does come to retrofitting buildings, is there anything coming down the pipe that you guys know of that is going to change the game? Because of course, climate change is always a big thing, and gas and that is on its way out. So people say, is there any new equipment or new technologies coming down that you guys work with?
I think to answer that question, it would be BMS. The technology between building management systems, automation systems, and how they control the equipment and how they allow the equipment to interact with the building itself. And a lot of that it comes down to energy management. To try to control the equipment to cool and heat and dehumidify when it needs to, not just like Nick said, like it's an on and off switch. It's technology that's continuously looking at the occupancy of a certain area, and what are they doing, what process is happening in that area, and then they can set up these systems to monitor like the temperature and the humidity and keep a consistent temperature and humidity level within that area, right? So that's that's happening right now, and now they're controlling lights, with nighttime setback. Shutting lights, turning lights off, turning lights on, those sorts of things, right? They're trying to control what's happening within the building envelope, which means controlling lighting, controlling how much energy is being used, and controlling the equipment that's attached or associated to that building. So
almost like the Alexas or the Google Homes or that sort of thing for a personal space. They're going more into the bigger businesses and stuff like that. Oh, okay.
And I think as a basic means of future technology, I think we're probably going to start getting away from a lot of the fossil fuels.
Okay.
So electrical applications can replace pretty much everything that a fuel base can. So you may start seeing more electric heaters or a process of refrigeration that produces heat.
Oh, okay.
As a substitution, will we see that within our lifetime? Probably later on lifetime. Fossil fuels are quite cheap and still readily available.
Yeah.
And most buildings have them. But there are other ways of doing it. It's just whether they're economically feasible.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that's like, go back to cars, they've been able to do electric cars for, 20, 30, 40 years.
Yeah.
The patents have been there, but it's because, gas and oil is so readily available that, Tesla's finally getting into the game as opposed to, some of these other companies that for years have had the patents and just refused to use them or didn't want to use them because it's meh.
Well, battery technology was really in the dust for the longest time.
Yeah.
And it wasn't, they weren't able to get enough kilometers out of the vehicle to be able to make it even worthwhile doing. But we've seen big changes in battery technology.
Which would also probably be good for you guys as well, right?
Maybe as a backup.
Okay.
Yeah. As a primary means, because we always have to control something, just to go off of a storage medium would be very difficult.
Yeah, to keep that, refrigerated temperature at, 9 degrees Celsius or...
Under emergency situation only, and even for that, we are still only seeing generators to be able to produce mainline power.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So really the only other real question I've got is when it comes to your trade, it being a red seal trade and everything else, what's it like when it's all said and done? Like body-wise, like most people, an electrician, or I was in concrete when I was younger and I decided to get out of it. I'm 6'4", catching edges in a basement on your knees, and your back's gone, your shoulders are gone. There were guys that were 5'3" and could barely walk. Mm-hmm. What's it like for you guys when it's all said and done at the end of the road when it comes to your body and your health?
Well, it's the right guy for the job. I'm 6'4", and some spaces I can work really well, and other ones I don't fit very well. We do have a varying, different size load of person with us. The job is very physical, and it is very hard on your body. Mm-hmm. Our knees are bad, our ankles are bad, wrists are bad because of the physical nature of the position.
Yeah.
Our backs.
Yeah. So when it comes to trying to pick that job, you want to make sure, you're physically fit, you were into sports growing up kind of thing. You can't just sit in front of a computer screen for, 10, 15, 20 years and then go, oh, I'm going to do this. It
is definitely advantageous to have a physical background. So if you go to the gym, it will benefit you greatly because you're lifting equipment into position, and sometimes it's not always in the best position.
Because, having to climb up a ladder with a refrigeration unit or something like that on your shoulder, or...
Well, we don't do that anymore.
No, but I'm talking back in the day when it was a little less... when the rules were a little less stringent, I should say.
Yes, we do have a lot of assistive means. I do have a background in health and safety. Mm-hmm. I've been a previous co-chair of the health and safety board. Okay. And we use assistive means every time we possibly can. Yeah. So if we can save our bodies, it's very worthwhile because there's not enough of us out in the trade to be able to maintain that load.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you guys were saying that earlier that, it's not electricians or plumbers where, you've got these unions that are, thousands upon thousands of people in, one specific area. It's, 10 of you, 20 of you kind of thing. So.
And it still comes down to right person for the job.
Mm-hmm.
If you have an area that's a little bit tighter, obviously you can't stick me in it.
No, it's always interesting too to see, the type of backgrounds that people get into, like from, a football player, a hockey player into, the trades, whereas, the guy that plays video games or is more of a bookworm goes into the engineering side or into, more computer work obviously now, but back in the day, all of us sitting here know that, computers are still a relatively new thing in comparison to some people's kids that's all they've known, so...
Well, everyone has a position within this trade.
Mm-hmm.
There's no real limiting factors as long as you can perform a physical job and a mental job.
Yeah.
You can do it. You can be a really skinny guy that doesn't go to the gym, or you can be the guy that goes to the gym and still produce the same work.
Rick, that sounded like a shot right at me. I'm just going to throw that out there.
I was giving him the other stink eye right.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's like, oh, okay, you can call me skinny, that's great.
We can get you there.
It's funny though, like it's when you get somebody who's young getting into the trade, how they don't work as smart with their bodies. And they'll pick things up, like, awkward positioning, like, picking things up wrong. But then as you get older and your body starts aching, you start working smarter. You start picking up with the proper lifting techniques. And
you'd almost think we should train someone to do that ahead of time, right?
Well, you would think. Well, I'm thinking of one person in particular, right? you may watch this episode coming up shortly, so we'll see how that goes.
Well, I do know from my own personal experience, when you are young and you are trying to learn something new, whether it's sports or jobs or whatever, you know everything.
Yeah.
Parents tell their kids all the time, well, why don't you move out before you know everything already, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, like I know in my career, in my job that I have now, which I'm not including this, when I first started, I wouldn't lift anything right.
Yeah.
Then all of a sudden hitting 35, 36 years old and you're going, I don't feel good getting up out of bed in the morning. Hey, maybe I should actually pick that up right.
There's a point when I get up, it's just like, I'm making these noises now, where I've never done that before. And it's just, it catches up to you. It really does.
Well, that's because you're old.
Oh, I am old. We won't talk about how old I am. These guys are a lot younger than me. Let's just put it that way.
Well, yeah, and I think too, like being in physical condition with any job, let alone yours, it's huge. And I know when it comes to like your job, from what Nick's been telling me, like it's not easy. It's not for everyone. You have to be that special type of, for lack of a better term, idiot. When it comes to, I'm going to put my body through this.
Yeah.
I'm going to look at something and go, okay, take my perspective, take my opinion out of it because I'm right here, and step back and go, okay, how do I fix this? You almost have to be a savant when it comes to the kind of stuff that you guys do, because it's never the same. It's never, this machine is going to work exactly the same as that one. Like somebody's saying a Ford and a Chevy are the same thing. Well, they're not.
So that's an important point too. I think maybe Nick and you and I have had this conversation where you can take the same identical unit and remove it from this building and then put it on this building over here, and the buildings are identical. But for whatever reason, that unit will work different.
Really?
Yeah. It'll just, I don't know what it is, but it's just, it's every piece of equipment. If you're working on a 5-ton rooftop unit, across the street, and then you're going to work in that same unit over here on the other side of the street, don't expect that unit to work the same, because there will be differences, and so you can't walk in thinking that every unit's the same, where there's like every unit is definitely different, and depending on the application, they will run differently too. So that's always something that you have to keep in the back of your mind.
Yeah, even if it's the exact same model, on the exact same size building, even though this one's used more for heat and this one's used more for cooling, they're going to work differently.
And your production dates and the quality control at that time, and what phase that unit was in. Some units, they're in a transition to a new component.
Okay.
But for the most part, if you're working on the same age of unit, it should run fairly close. But but sometimes certain applications where it is, they work funny.
Yeah.
Well, this episode has actually been quite informative for me, because, as I said, like you and I have talked a bunch of times about what you do for work and kind of where you go and what you do, and it's like speaking absolute gibberish most of the time, but, sitting down and explaining things to this idiot is probably going to help a lot of people, maybe even pick the career, or might even sit there and, be looking at a contract expiring with one company and, listening to you guys talk, as opposed to, the same song and dance they hear from the same guy that's just trying to get their money is going to, get you guys more business and make them a happier customer. So I'd like to thank actually both of you for coming in, and hopefully we can do this again sometime. Maybe we'll do a fuck around podcast and talk about sports or talk about anything and everything, because it was actually quite an enjoyable talk.
Yeah, it was great. Thank you.
So that would be the end of this podcast. I'd like to thank everybody for listening, and I want everybody to stay safe, stay opinionated. Have a good one.